it affects them in different ways, their education, their nutrition, it affects their health, for example, it affects how they are protected in different ways. And so we want to understand this. And just to mention that we as civil societies are also very important, and also religious institutions, and how they can ensure that children are able to meaningfully participate. Because uh, not to shame or not to paint uh, the state actors in a bad way, but sometimes you find that we act as religious institutions and as civil society. We come in to help and play a certain role that the government is not doing and the state actors are not doing. But then we are not here to mention that no, who is not doing their work, but we are here to ensure that we are able to make sure that children are able to meaningfully participate. And just as we conclude this introductory part, I want to mention that this webinar and this conversation is timely because if you're aware, you will know that in 2025, the theme for the Day of the African Child is planning and budgeting for children's rights, progress since 2010. And why progress since 2010? Because that is the first time where this particular theme came up, planning and budgeting for children's rights. And so we want to talk to our panelists, we want to talk to our experts on what they think, and also get for us to understand what role are we playing as civil society in ensuring that children are able to meaningfully participate and meaningfully be involved, even by the government in the budgeting process. And so, before I hand it over to my colleague, let me just check if he's here already. Yes, Samuel Smith is here. Like I mentioned, I was just doing and holding in for him for the introduction, but we'll be walking through this journey together. And probably we can have our moderator, Samuel Smith, who you will notice is a child, and I will be helping him. And also, just so we can hear from our panelists, maybe our panelists can introduce themselves, and then we can continue starting with Miss Wanjiro, and then we can have Jennifer, and then we can have Elijah as we wait for our other panelists. The floor is yours, Sam Smith, and also to the panelists. Thank you. Samuel Smith, if you can hear me.
Oh, sorry, Atulo. I thought we were starting with the parent. Sorry. Well, hello everyone. My name is Samuel Smith, and I'm deeply honored to moderate today's conversation. Forgive me for the hitch. I've been having network technicals. But anyways, welcome to our webinar on the role of CSOs and religious institutions in enhancing child participation in the government's budgeting processes. We've got a pack of questions tailored to each panelist that we have. And I think first we can have our panelists.
Thank you, Samuel Smith. Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer Kaberi. I'm founder of Mtoto News. I am child participation evangelist because I believe children have views and they need to participate. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak on a very important conversation. Thank you, Samuel Smith.
Thank you, Jennifer, thank you for the introduction. I believe Sam is experiencing some technical hitches on the internet. Maybe we can go to Miss Wanjiru to introduce herself.
Hello everybody, I hope you guys can hear me. My name is Michelle Wanjiru. I'm a child activist at Mtoto News, and I'm also a child journalist, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you, Ms. Wanjiru. And then we can have Mr. Elijah Bonyo.
Thank you very much. My name is Bonyo Elijah. I'm also facing a bit of connectivity, internet connectivity issues. And I work for World Vision Kenya, and happy to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we wait for Samuel to come back, maybe I can start by asking the panelists. Probably you can just tell us what you understand, but when budgeting, the government's budgeting process comes to mind. What comes to mind when you hear government's budgeting processes? Starting with
Okay, let me go. So for me, when it comes to budgeting in government, I think about my household, okay? When I'm budgeting for my house, like every month, you budget, you need to pay for rent, you need to pay for water, you need to pay for electricity, you need to pay for food, you need to pay school fees, maybe you have a medical bill, okay? So it is the same thing, but now in a larger scale. So when it comes to and then you have to budget like for each one of your children. So that's the same thing when it comes to child participation. When I think about child participation, I mean, rather budgeting, that's the same thing. The government is budgeting for the country, okay, and allocating. So this is our bill for water. So this is how much money we need to pay for water. This is our bill for electricity. This is how much we need to feed children. We need to pay school fees. That maybe money goes to education. There is some emergency fund. If something happens, this is the money that we are going to use. So for me, that's what I think when it comes to budgeting. So because you are budgeting, but in a larger scale, you are budgeting for 54 million people instead of budgeting maybe for your household that has 4 people. So that's what I think about budgeting when I'm thinking about budgeting for myself. Thank you so much, Atulo.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for also setting the pace. I'd love to ask the panelists if you are able to, when you're speaking, kindly put your video on, and I hope I'll start by myself also. My background is not so welcoming, but you will allow me to do this. But also for the other panelists, if you're speaking, kindly put your video on so that we can also follow on the same. Maybe we can have Miss Wanjiru. You could tell us, as a child, what does budgeting look like when you hear government budgeting, does it ring any bell? Does it say anything to you?
I'm so sorry. I'm experiencing some technical difficulties, but when it comes to the question, for me, budgeting for child's rights means that the government is supposed to sit down and create a budget that will be able to accommodate children and accommodate them to be able to go for meetings and to be able to represent other children. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Wanjiru. Just to mention that it is really, I love the fact that you're able to bring this out and say that even before we dive into our topic further, you're able to tell us that children are really important in this. And while the government is doing this, they're able to consider children and they're able to look at children and how can we have children at the table and them being able to have and be part of this discussion, important discussion, which, as Jennifer mentioned, the government is considering how their house is run, and children are part of this house. So whenever we are talking about how will this house run, which is Kenya in this example, person that is in this house, and they're able to further into that. We can come back to that on ensuring and also understanding how you as a child, you think you should be participating in this process, but then also to get to Mr. Bonyo, maybe you can just giving us an example of what comes to your mind when you hear government budgeting processes, and also as you answer that, you can also tell us, because we're now talking about children participation, and maybe you can just give us an overview of what participation looks like and how the government, probably based on the constitution, how participation is envisioned as we look at budgeting process. Mr. Elijah.
Yeah, thanks, Tulo. I think for me, one is that budgeting is about money. So you cannot talk about budget without talk about money. So when I hear government budget asks, the basic thing I usually ask myself, where is the money that the government is using to budget? That money is coming from the citizens of this country, especially parents. Anytime a parent buys anything from the shop, a lot of things we buy from the shop are taxed. So anytime a parent buys anything from the shop, the government takes some money in form of tax. And all the money collected in the form of tax from the things we buy, they put it together with the money they collect in the form of tax from those who work. So when the government is budgeting, the money the government uses to budget is from us, all of us. If you work, they tax you. You buy something, they tax you. You go to a matatu, you pay your matatu transport because of the fuel issues. So at the end of the day, when we hear government budget, is basically government using the money they've collected from us to plan on how to provide services to us. That's the most important thing, so that when you say budget, it's our money that the government is using to budget for us. It's simply because the government is supposed to provide for us our services. In the Constitution of Kenya, if you read Article 21, you'll see clearly the role of government in providing basic things for us. Article 21(2) talks about is the role of the government to address the rights in Article 43. Article 43 is economic and social rights. So a number of children issues, before you go to the Article 53 on children matters, are basically economic and social rights. Water, education, health, protection, social security. So the context of children, it's the duty of government to implement Article 21(2), which means government is supposed to implement Article 43 even before you talk about children. But when you go to children specifically, then you go to Article 53. When the Article 53 says the child has a right to certain things, It is the money the government collects from us that the government will use to design programs, projects, and services to ensure that those rights are implemented. The other bit that I wanted to say based on what you're asking me, rights in this country, a child has the same right to water just like adults. A child has the same right to education just like adults. A child has the same right to food just like adults. So there are certain things that if they're taken away from you, you die. So an adult who does not have food will die. A child who has no food will die. So when you talk about government planning to address our needs around food, health, water, the money they've collected from us, they're supposed to use to provide services. But because they've collected this money from us, they're supposed to ask us, how do you want us to use your money? So participation in this sense is that it is us who are providing the money, and therefore the government should ask us how they want to spend our money. It follows, therefore, people who require services are all persons who live in this country, children and adults. So it's important for government to ask adults what they want to be done with the money. They also go to ask children what they want to be done with the money. But when they ask children what should be done with the money, for example, when children say, we want the money to go for water, it's also important to give the children an opportunity to say, what type of water do you want? Do you want water from boreholes? Do you want water in the pipes? Do you want water in your houses? Do you want water in the schools? Where do you want the water to be? When we say that children tells government that government should provide money for food, they're supposed to be asked, how should the food be produced? Is it that we give your parents money for farming so that your parents can give you food? Or do you want government to buy the food and give it to you? When it comes to things like education, the government should ask children, we know you have a right to education, but why do you want us to put money for education? Children can say, we don't have teachers, put money on teachers, or we don't have books, put money on books, or our schools are not fenced, put money on fencing our schools. So the idea is, because your government is supposed to provide services to people, adults and children, when it comes to children, it's important to ask children what they want the money to be used for, so that then we don't put money on things that children may not want. So in the current context of the country, normally, when you hear public participation, sometimes it's adults that go for these meetings. Some parents go to public participation and they forget that even children have a right to participation. So in our constitution, the right to participation is for everybody. It's not for adults only. The only place in this country where children do not participate is elections. And they don't participate in elections simply because they don't have an ID. But to decide who the right leader should be, that they can. For example, a child in 17 years old can actually be able to make a better decision than an adult who's 45 years old in as far as choosing the right leader is concerned, depending on context. So what we are trying to say in this meeting, in summary, is that because it is the people who provide money to government, the government has to ask these people, what do you want the money to do? But the people include children. The word people includes children, male and female. The word public includes children, male and female. So we need to take seriously the fact that in the coming month, when Parliament will receive the budget from the executive, that is basically the president's cabinet will approve the budget as prepared by Treasury. So next week on 29th, Parliament will receive the budget. Then in the month of May, Parliament, through the budget committee, should go out there to listen to people. So we are supposed to ask ourselves, when the MPs are going to start listening to people, how can you ensure that they listen to children? How can you ensure that the MPs have a dialogue with children and then they get views of the children? So the output from this meeting there should be good clarity on what we can do to ensure that we connect the MPs to the children so that the children are listened to wherever they are, without necessarily insisting that children must travel from Nairobi, because some of them may not be able to have the mechanism or the money to get to the Nairobi. But even when the MPs listen to children, we also need to follow up and check the things that children shall have said. Are the MPs going to address them? And if children tell the MPs maybe 100 things, how many of the 100 things can they do? So we can say, if children tell MPs they have 100 things to be done, we have a responsibility checking Out of the 100 things, how many have been done? And then you have also a responsibility to ensure that children are given feedback. So all these things we are saying, if you read the Children Act properly, Section 28 of the Children Act, is very clear that every matter concerning the child or every matter affecting the child should be heard. So the issue of budget and money is a matter affecting the child. So the message is, because money and budget is a matter affecting the child, especially when that money is used to provide education, provide water, provide food, provide healthcare, then children should be heard. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Elijah, for ensuring that you're able to remind us how we are shaping this conversation and taking it back to us as civil society organizations. What are we doing to ensure that, and religious organizations also, what are we doing to ensure that children are able to participate in this? And I love the fact that you mentioned part of the budget process, which like you mentioned, next week on 29th, the Parliament is going to receive the budget from the executive. And I know this is not probably the first process and not the last process. You've also mentioned how people are participating in look and basically looking at the budget and seeing, oh, this is what we want, this is what they say we have in this. And so maybe we can also continue to understand, how does the government budgeting process look like? And I think this is also one of the things that we as civil society organizations need to do and need to ensure that we trickle it down to the children that we work with, to the children that we work for, and to the children that are in contact with us in one way or another. And so thank you for making that clarification. And like you mentioned, as CSOs, we need to ensure that we are championing and we are at the forefront of ensuring that children are able to participate, and not just to participate, but they're able to meaningfully participate, and they're able to have an understanding of this process. And that is also one of the reasons why we have children here, so that they can also be able to tell us and to give us reference. And so also just to mention that after this meeting, we're not just having this as a conversation that lacks basis, but it's a conversation that, as Mr. Bonyo mentioned, he was mentioning articles in the Constitution. We have Article 21, Article 21.2, Article 43, and also coming back to reminders of Article 53, which talks about the rights of the child in this country. And so just to mention that as we are going forward, Mr. Bonyo mentioned that MPs need to listen to children. And this country, we have constituencies, and that does not necessarily mean that the only place we can listen to children or the MPs can listen to children is at the national level or the parliament only, but we can also, as civil society, ensure that in the communities that we work with, in the constituencies that we work with, how are we ensuring that children's voices are able to be listened to by the specific member of parliament for that area? And also just to ensure that children are able to also understand the budgeting process. I know many of us are not as experts in this process as, for example, Mr. Bonyo is, and also, but then we can find a way of ensuring that even as we are talking to children about this budgeting, we talk about child participation, and we mention one of the things that we need to do in child participation is ensuring that the child is able to understand, have an understanding of what they are participating in. And so just as we move forward, I'd also love to hear from the child representative. I see Sam Smith is back.
Yes.
Sam Smith is back.
Yeah.
Apologies again for the technical hitches that he's facing, and that is why I'm also stepping in to continue the conversation, just so we don't have much delay. But then, as we continue, maybe we can hear from Michelle. What budgeting as a child, when you hear budgeting, we've already talked about that. But then, what probably you can give in details, and also some of the issues that you think are important for us to budget for. What does that mean to you as a child? Michelle?
For me as a child, I think that when you tell me budgeting, I understand budgeting in terms of setting aside money for a specific um, event or a specific itinerary that's supposed to be done. So for me, I feel like it's important for self-participation, especially to be budgeted, because there are many meetings that said to be meetings to discuss children's issues, but the children aren't there. So I think that that's the first important thing when it comes to child participation budgeting. Also for me, I think the main issues that should be budgeted for, I think I'll speak on behalf of girl child especially. I feel like the issues that should be budgeted for are mainly issues to do with lack of, lack of the basic things that children don't have, stuff to do with food, stuff to do with the scarcity when it comes to water or when it comes to school, yes, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, awesome. That's amazing insights from Michelle. And just to build up on from the child's perspective and what Michelle has mentioned, yeah, it's actually true that even with the current budget allocations for the recent financial year, with the landscape, it shows that the budget doesn't really reflect the needs of us children. As far as much, yes, education is a need, but we also have safeguarding. We also have those basics that we need, like, as you said, speaking for the girl child, sanitary kits, and all of that. And I think it all comes from how the allocation, like how the government sees the investment in children. I think so much it's on only education, leaving alone also other ministries who have responsibilities, like to fulfill the legal frameworks, like the Children's Act. You see, we also have some other government agencies like the state departments of social protection. Yeah, social. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, because they also have that weight responsibility to safeguard children, and they're severely underfunded. That leads to our needs not being met and reflected in the budget. So, like, I think we can move on to the next panelist. I believe it's Ponyo. Mr. Bonyo, your
Yeah, thank
question.
you. Let me. I just spoken. I think you had internet connectivity, but let me just make some comments again. One, we need to ask ourselves whether the government comes to us or not, as say children for that matter. Do you already have information from children on what they want to be done? This is because the government plans and budgets every year. So in 2023, did the children come together to put together the issues? The answer is yes. During the Day of the African Child processes in 2023, children came together in different parts of the country and they had memorandum and they had issues. In the same 2023, during the African Summit held in Kenya, children had a lot of issues documented. In 2024, children have had meetings, including the Day of the African Child, issues were documented. This year, the Africa Pre-Summit held in Kenya, children came together and they had issues. So even if you are saying the government has to go and listen to children or MPs have to go and listen to children, all these things that children have been writing, we also need to ask government to respond to those things so that we are not in a situation where we are saying the government should listen to children while previous issues have not been addressed. So what I'm saying, Bwana Smith, number one, can you guys put together all the things children have been saying and present them to Parliament whichever way, and ask Parliament, can you first respond to these issues before you ask us new things? Because if children spoke in 2023, they spoke in 2024, they even spoke last month at the pre-summit, they had a report. So one of the things we need to do is to demand for accountability on the progress made by government in allocating money to address things that children said before. Otherwise, you will be asking children to say the same things they have been saying. You can imagine a child who has attended government meeting 2023, 2024, and 2025, then is being asked again, what do you want the government to do for you? That child may just say, I don't need the government to ask me that question. Can the government respond to the things we have been raising every year? So that's one angle that we need when you talk about child participation. It is not just about Parliament or government coming to listen to children, but it's about providing feedback on the previous things children had raised. So I strongly suggest the Children Committee that you are working with Smith, put together the list of everything you have been putting together for the last 3 years. Then you can write to the clerk of the National Assembly and present those issues and say, you want responses. And Mtoto News can assist you by delivering that document to the clerk of the National Assembly. Then number two, when now we say the budget, you know, we also remember that you people, Smith, and I remember you were there, you came to KICC. And I remember some of you children were taking photos with the PSS, and you presented your memorandum. So you also need not to forget that when the budget was being prepared by the executive, not all children participated, but a few of you came to Nairobi, you were in KICC, you presented your memorandum. So this is the time to say the things we presented to the principal secretaries and government officials at KICC, were those things considered? So look for the copies of memorandum we presented in KICC, take them and give MPs and tell MPs, this budget that the executive is bringing from you, please check if these things you had told them are also included. So yes, the participation in the executive side when the budget was being prepared might have had its challenges, but I'm assuring you, those who did not know, some children spoke, and Smith, I remember you were there, and another lady called Koki. You presented your issues, you took photos with the government ministers, document all those things, and tell MPs, these are the things we told the executive. So, and the MPs tell you whether the executive have addressed those things you have. Then the last one, the Day of the African Child, this year the theme is planning and budgeting. So children who are here and the colleagues, civil society, let us collaborate. We can have every constituency, the MP for every constituency can have a meeting with the children as part of the Day of the African Child processes. And every MP who has a meeting with children in his constituency can discuss plans and budgets. So we don't need to wait for June to do a big celebration. We can make sure in the constituencies, in the schools, we meet with the MPs or children meet with the MPs and present the issues with the MPs. Thank you, and back to you.
Right. Thank you, Bwana Elijah, for that reflection. And honestly, just to build up on what you said, yeah, I was also part of that team, that section, a section of children which were called for the public hearing for the financial year 2025-2026. And yeah, it is very heartbreaking to see that even after making sure that ministers and government representatives sign off the memorandums as a commitment that they will indeed consider this and take our voices with a lot of weight and go back to the drawing boards, even in their programs and all that. Unfortunately, even to date currently, like it reflects that our needs weren't, like, it was just maybe for it was actually for a show, because like I don't know what happened, like we were called and the discussion led nowhere. And they just went back ticking off the check boxes, and yeah, the formality was completed. So like, I think that approach is what we need to break this systemic failure of what the government looks like. Think of what child participation is, because speaking from like having grown increasingly frustrated of this loop and system, that we children deserve even to have a seat at the table before the food is served. Not just they call us for the public hearing. Tayari wakiwa they've planned their programs and everything. You see, how we even sure those programs like reflect our needs. We just go there like more of begging them to consider our unique needs in their programs and everything. So like that's an amazing approach that you can foster so that to get feedback. And I believe I will rest assured that I will work with Mtoto News, and we'll see how we can rally. Not only Mtoto News, we also need other CSOs, so as united we stand together. And we rally a lot of children advocates and children, even from the grassroots. We know how we can really get in line with this. Allow me to inquire, Atulo, who's the next person who's supposed to speak, like, questions? Because, like,
I'm here, Smith.
Oh, you were the one next. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Jennifer, probably you can tell us and make us understand how, as Mtoto is an organization which you have been leading for a very long time, and like you mentioned in the introduction, that you also have been at the forefront and you're so passionate about child participation. Maybe you can help us understand, Jennifer, what has Mtoto as an organization done or is doing to ensure that children are able to influence budgetary decisions at different levels.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. So as Mtoto News, anybody knows about Mtoto News, you're a child-centered organization. Actually, we're almost 90% child-led. And one of the things that we do, we are very intentional in creating platforms like this, okay, where we educate the public on the importance of including children in budgeting processes. For example, right now we are working with other partners on how to ensure that before the budget is passed, the members of parliament will have an opportunity to listen to children. Number two is also create content that is child-friendly so that you can be able to understand the budget process. For example, what are the processes of the budget? So if you go to our website, we have a whole article and we have a page where it shows the budgeting process in a child-friendly version, so that if a child wants to engage in the budgeting process, they understand this is the stage, this is the stage, this what is the budget, what are the budgeted processes, and then also simplifying the budget into child-friendly version. So we're always very intentional. As soon as the budget is released, we are by the end of the day or the following day, we have a child-friendly version of the budget, so that children are able to engage in the budget and be able to understand, instead of these big numbers, what do these big numbers mean to me as a child, how much allocation has been given to my school, how much to dispensary where I am in. So for us, you're very, very intentional in doing that. And you are happy, as I think Bonyo has said, right now we are very intentional for the next 2 months before the budget is passed. We are very intentional in ensuring that children engage with members of parliament. So we are calling upon colleagues who are here who would be interested in engaging a member of parliament in your constituency. Please do reach out to us. Someone is going to put our email address on the chat. And please do reach out to us, because we are looking for 295 organizations who can be able to engage all the members of parliament, because members of parliament are willing, but now we are looking for the core core people, the CSOs who are going to help in ensuring that that happens. Okay, and with that we are sure we'll be able to reach all the 295 constituency, and members of parliament will be able to hear directly from the children, because they are only from 2nd until the end of the month, and we're hoping during that time they'll be coming to the constituencies. Organizations could be able to engage with them. Okay, so you'll be able to engage with a member of parliament who will be keen to connect you to the member of parliament, and you organize a meeting. Okay, we'll give you some, if you need some tools to engage, we'll give you tools of engagement, like a guideline or how to collect information from children. So if you need a training on how to engage children, we are willing to do that. So if you are willing, so this thing that we are doing, and we are very, very keen. Okay, our new strategy is very keen in helping adults listen and engage. Atulo, back to you, or is this Samuel Smooth?
Yeah. Thank you, Miss Jenny. On that. Allow me to mention this, that I feel like we should have like a collective approach on all this, making sure not only the CSOs and faith-based organizations are involved, but also we get those targeted duty bearers, like in government, that are responsible on translating legal frameworks into real change. And I don't know, just to challenge, like all of us here in this webinar, on how we can get them, because like from the landscape of the of Kenya's investment, like how the budget allocation for 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026. With my own research, I've clearly seen that the government actually in the previous financial year, they actually allocated roughly 27% of the budget to the Ministry of Education, showing that yes, indeed, the government is intentional in actually investing in children and the youngest citizen in terms of development, you see. But though the issue is like what they see, like children, they perceive the Ministry of Education carries entirely children, yet in regards to even the international instruments, the UNCRC and the African Children's Charter, and also this our legal framework, the Children's Act, the Ministry of Education is only supposed to fulfill the access to quality education. That's the only thing, you see. But we also have other ministries that are responsible, like for the safeguarding of children, our social services. You see, that's basically children. What I'm trying to put out here is that they're just investing in students, you see, and that's where I think we should really know how we can get to these PSs, and so that we can. I think Bonyo can help me here, because like with what I know, when they're budgeting the ministries, like before they send them to the treasury, I think we should start from there, knowing that their programs really reflect our needs, you see. So that by the time we're reaching to the parliament, because I see we're really focusing so much on the MPs, you see, yet they only approve they approve the budget so that it goes to the allocation. So we should
maybe Smith,
yeah.
Let me intervene somewhere, so that before you proceed, what we need to remember, Parliament, the MP is elected by the people, right? And
Yeah.
I want to, if you find time, you go to
Yeah.
the Constitution of Kenya. Sawa.
Sawa,
If you
sawa.
go to the Constitution of Kenya, check Article 95. Article 95, 1 and 2. Article 95, 2, you'll see someone written, the National Assembly deliberates on and resolves issues of concern to the people. So, though we know that the budget preparation is a long process that starts at the government departments, so you are right, planning and budgeting starts in the departmental level, then it goes to the sector level. When it goes to Parliament to approve, it is not late. We need to remember MP is elected. The Constitution, Article 95(2) says, Parliament or National Assembly deliberates and resolves issues of concern to the people. So we are supposed to tell MPs in the Constitution, the MP has a role to resolve issues of concern to the children. When you take that matter that way, it means you can put more pressure on Parliament to approve the right things. If the things that are going to them are not the right things, then you tell them our issues as children are the following, and the law says you are supposed to resolve our issues. So you are supposed now to put a strong case for them to resolve your issues. The executive implements what is approved by Parliament. So if Parliament approves the wrong thing, then your issues are not addressed. That's the interjection I wanted us to also appreciate. Then number two, Mtoto News, together with you, Smith, and other teams, let us begin to look at, can we prepare summary, simplified version of the government budget process? So we do this, we develop simplified version of the government budget process that children can understand. Then we take that through schools so that all children in Kenya can understand that. If possible, we even tell the Minister for Education and KICD that can the national government budget process and the county government budget process be part of the curriculum so that children learn this in school. Then the last thing, we also tell them schools should be the space where even government can come to collect views from children, because that way you find many children participating. I thank you, and I'm sorry I will need to step out for another thing I needed to do. Otherwise, thank you very much, Smith, for this opportunity, and I hope in Mtoto News, after this meeting, we may need to look for Smith and other children to plan for how we are going to work with Parliament better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bonyo, for that insight. And I understand you're set up for something else. So yeah, we will release you. And I think I'm going to yield the floor to our child representative, Michelle, because like we've had a lot the adults talking for quite some time. Let us hear like that from a child's lens, like how like absorbing this all, because I'm sure Michelle is also learning 1 to 3 things that are new in terms of the budgeting, so that we get, and also her insight. Michelle. Just before Michelle goes on, I'm being informed that we have another panelist who has joined us, Reverend Tom Otieno, and he'll be representing the faith-based organization, so that we can get the perspective from that, from the lens of that key stakeholder. I'd like to welcome Reverend Tom to just introduce himself and let us know what he understands from the faith-based organization perspective on child participation in government budgeting processes. Welcome so much, Reverend Tom.
Thank you very much indeed. My name is Reverend Tom Otieno from the Anglican Church of Kenya. I'm a priest in the Anglican Church of Kenya. Currently stationed at All Saints Cathedral Diocese as Director of Missions for All Saints Cathedral Diocese. My understanding of child rights is that the guarantee that the COK 2010, Constitution of Kenya 2010, gives to ensure that children are safeguarded in the area of nutrition, the area of education, the area of health, so that a child is entitled. So no child should be begging for those basic things, for good nutrition, for education, and for good health care. As such, then, government is not just mandated, but is required and is supposed to provide for these needs and guarantee these needs for every child in the Republic. Now, what then that means is that it is the duty of stakeholders to have a very clear understanding of this and to organize their voice collectively in activism so that we are able to raise and champion the cause of the rights of children. As faith-based organizations, we are very woke to this. We know that part of our wider mandate, and very urgent mandate, is to champion the needs of children and to champion the rights of children. So we are very woke to it. We have children's departments, both in the parish level and in the diocesan level and at the national level. We engage with child conversations, we engage with child discourses, and we engage with children's challenges. And our role in making sure that government properly budgets and plans for children's rights, so our children's rights are met, is first in advocacy. The advocacy means we must understand at our fingertips the Constitution of Kenya 2010 provisions for children's rights, which I can proudly say we do. However, our weakness has been that we haven't been as consistent in advocating for children's rights, number one. And number two, we have not been able to put government on pressure and on toes as we should have as is required of us as stakeholders and key stakeholders at that. So we need a lot of pulling up of socks as far as this particular matter is concerned, reorganize ourselves, rebuff our efforts, and relaunch and reset. So this is a wake-up call for us. I don't know whether that suffices for now.
Oh yes, thank you so much, Reverend Tom Otieno. Honestly, I would like to personally, on behalf of all the children of Kenya, applaud that unwavering commitment of the religious institutions in bettering the welfare of children and advocating for their best interests. Thank you so much. And I have some few questions for you, Reverend Tom, from a faith-based lens.
Yes.
From a faith-based lens, how can religious institutions help bridge the gap between communities, children, and government processes in budget participation? Sorry.
First thing we must do is connect with the community to know what the needs of children are. What are the needs of children? What kind of children are we dealing with? Because as an organization, religious organizations are grassroots organizations. There's nowhere we are not present. even in the nook and cranny where government is not present, you will find a church, you will find a mosque, you will find, a religious institution. So first port of call is understanding the community. What kind of needs, unique needs, does this community present to us? Secondly is to understand the kind of budget that the county government and the national government is supposed to allocate vis-a-vis what they have allocated. So looking at the budget gap, what is the budget gap? What are the needs? We have already assessed the needs by understanding the particular needs in the context we are in. Then looking at the budget. And then thirdly, we must get ourselves on the table of discussion. And people don't just get invited into these tables of discussion for children's matters. Usually you go and knock the door and barge in. So I think as religious organizations, because we are partners with government and we are partners with all institutions of goodwill, we need to be a little more aggressive in sitting at the table and articulating the needs of children. And then thirdly, ensuring implementation, proper implementation, because there are times we have everything in place, policy is in place, budget is in place, plan is in place, but implementation, so the most vulnerable child does not get what has been budgeted for them because of implementation flaws or implementation gaps. So I would say that we need to have a comprehensive and systematic approach to ensure trickle down in terms of implementation, so that the child is reached the least, to the very last child, the very last drop of cash reaches the child that it's supposed to reach. One of the other things we must do, our role is also to fight corruption, because we know that there are middlemen who take advantage, or the best term to use is middlemen, organizations and people that want to eat money that has been allocated and set apart for purposes of children's rights. So it is our role to expose this kind of people or organizations and make sure that they are eliminated from this particular equation, so that we do not lose any funds. Because the easiest place to steal funds, people steal from the sick and people steal from the vulnerable, and children are part of those who are vulnerable and sick and who are stolen from. So we have a role to fight corruption and get people out of the way who are not, whose only role is to steal. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Sam Smith.
Yeah.
Once again, I think some might be facing hitches. Sam, are you here? Okay. As we continue, maybe you can hear from Jennifer. You mentioned about the things that Nutritionist is working on, and also I believe other organizations are working on the same. I'd love to hear from you. Are there any challenges? And we know our work involves, in the civil society involves a little bit of challenges, but then maybe you can highlight to us probably what are some of the challenges that you experience and that Nutritionist experiences when it comes to integrating children's feedback in policies like the budget process, for example. And we've had Mr. Elijah talk about how children have been talking for the longest time. Maybe you can highlight other challenges that as an individual, as an organization, and also from observation of other organizations. What are some of the challenges that they are facing when it comes to this particular topic that we are having? Jennifer?
Thank you so much, Atulo. One, child participation is against cultural, especially African culture, because most of the time children want to be seen and not to be heard. So that's the biggest challenge we have. So it is changing, but it's changing gradually. People listening to children. We've had comments like, what can a 6-year-old tell me? I'm here, I'm the parent, I'm speaking, I know better than my child. Or my organization will exist to represent children. We are here, we're going to represent children. So children don't have voices for themselves. So the people who are representing them. So those are some of the challenges, the perception that children don't have an opinion, children cannot be able to talk. That's the biggest one. So our biggest challenge is adults' perception of children. And of course, why we are talking about resourcing child participation is because we don't have enough resources to child participation, especially now with the dwindling resources in the civil society and the development sector. The first thing that gets cut out is children. And children, the first thing that gets cut out is child participation. So it's something that we have seen over and over again. Capacity, people do not know how to engage children. Okay, that's something we get, like we were in a meeting yesterday, and we spoke about child participation, and the whole team, about 10 people, they looked at us and they said, you guys go do that thing. We can't do it. You are the ones who can do it, because we fear working with children. And these are guys who are like in their professional training, they are trained to work with children, but they said, we will not be able to do children. We cannot be able to do children. So it's something that we have seen over and over again. Capacity, people fear, they fear children. They don't have the capacity. They think the perception, okay, lack of resources are some of the things. But you know what? We said we are going to do it afraid. We are going to do it without resources. But the fruits are amazing. The fruits are amazing. I read something today, and it really is the work that we are doing. Like when a bee is choosing when bees are choosing their mother bee or their queen bee, they nurture, they care, they give attention to that bee. And that's what we do. So for us to be able to develop Africa, for us to be able to change what we think, we need to nurture, we need to care, and we need to give attention to our children. So that's what we do, so to ensure that children are participating. Thank you so much, Atulo.
Oh my God. All right, thank you, Miss Jenny. Forgive me, I'm having apologies for the hitches facing online. Yeah, I think the next thing we from the community level, knowing their actual needs, and you've actually told us the roles of the religious institutions in fighting the barriers to child participation, like the corruption and all. And the question is, what role can interfaith networks play in ensuring that children from marginalized and vulnerable groups backgrounds are heard during public participation forums? Yield over the floor to Reverend Tom.
We've lost
Rev, if you're here.
Hello, sorry, what did you ask?
Rev, you mentioned that you work in the mission part of the church, the All Saints
Yes,
Cathedral.
I do.
And
Yes, I do.
and I know you work with children from different backgrounds, and especially the vulnerable children. And so
That is
what Sam
correct.
Smith is asking is, how can we ensure that children from these marginalized communities, children from these vulnerable backgrounds are heard whenever we are having public participation or children participation forums? How unique are they, and how can we listen to them?
Number one is to have forums for them. The church does have forums for them through the children's ministry and the children's department of the church. But the second thing that needs to happen is we need to elevate these forums and connect them with adult forums so that children's forums are not looked down upon as childish forums. We need to elevate the conversation about children. We need to escalate to the adults, especially where adults have a stake, and most of the time adults have a stake. We need to escalate it to the children. But yes, the first port of call in children being heard, especially the vulnerable, is through the children's departments and the children's workers who work in the church and also who work in the government and the civil society organizations that work with children. And the second port of call is elevating those conversations and putting them, escalating them into the mainstream of conversation. And I think that's where the big task really is. As I listen to my colleagues here in the conversation, I think that is the biggest elephant in the room. It is escalating these conversations and mainstreaming them to become important enough to be prioritized, because we know that how government works is what is important is what is prioritized. What is prioritized is what is important. So how can we position the children in such a way that the conversation about children takes center stage and becomes mainstream and not sideline? And for me, bringing that first into the adult church, and then secondly, getting what you call critical mass attention. Who are critical mass? I'll define critical mass as people who occupy important positions in society, both in the private sector and in the public sector and in business. How can we leverage our case for children so that it becomes mainstream and it becomes important and therefore priority? I think that's a challenge we have. And I have a few thoughts on that. For one, is that we must treat children's matter as priority in our budgeting and in the very little that we can do. Let us all be about children. Number two, let us not stop talking about children to important people. It doesn't matter how much they ignore us. We keep going back. Because sometimes one of the ways you get things done is by bothering people. If we say it once, people will hear it, but they will not prioritize it because they don't think it's important. After all, we live in a world of competing attention. There are many, many matters that compete for the attention of what we call critical mass or important people. So we keep talking and we keep repeating ourselves until we sound redundant. But it is in that redundancy that somebody gets bothered enough to say, why do you go on and on about children? Then you can tell them it is important, and therefore they will prioritize it. I think thirdly, my third thought about this is to bring and showcase. What is our showcase ability? Do we have any children to showcase? Do we have stories that we can partner with media to broadcast and to put out there? Because a lot of us who work with children, both in the church and civil society, have very good stories that are not being told. So we are basically smiling in the dark, and we need to light up our smiles. So we need to have our stories told by the media. We need to have, case studies. We need to have good human interest stories that people can chew on in society, and then drive conversations and change narratives and begin to reshape that conversation so that the conversation about children becomes mainstream and not sidelined conversation. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Rev. I see that Sam has dropped off again. And as we finish our conversation today, and also just going to look at what is going to happen, I'd love to for Jennifer to also answer this. As we are looking at the Day of the African Child, and we have said that this year we have a very wonderful theme, and which is part of the conversation that we're having. So, Jennifer, as you commemorate the Day of the African Child with the year's theme that you mentioned, budgeting for children's, planning and budgeting for children's rights, progress since 2010. We'd love to hear from you. What strategies can civil society organizations adopt to align their advocacy work with both national and county budget timelines? Jennifer?
I think clearly call, like I'm screaming help, because we have between now and Monday, and 30th, today is 24th, between today and 30th, we have a window of opportunity to be able to start mobilizing children, because the parliamentary public participation starts on 2nd of May. So we may not change a lot in the budget, but we might spark something that is going to be effective in the next budget. Remembering, we are building up on last year, what happened last year. Immediately after the parliament passed the finance bill of 2024, young people rose up, but they want the same repeat. And I'm sure no government person wants the same repeat of last year. So they are more acceptable and more accommodative to any forums that will ensure participation and meaningful participation of young people. So for me, we have an opportunity to be able to ensure that children and young people are participating in the budgeting process. So we don't want to have a maandamano. Okay, we don't want children to go to the streets. We say we are not going to do that. We are going to ensure the children are engaged before any budget conversation happening in Parliament. Okay, that their inputs are there. Okay, and they are considered. So for me, that's a window of opportunity that you have. So if you know a member of Parliament, or you stay in a constituency that you can be able to engage a member of Parliament, I think that is the Day of the African Child. Okay, let's not wait for 16th, because the budget will be passed on 12th. So 16th will be too late for any budget process to happen. So, but if you can be able to do before then, so by the time the Day of the African Child, we are talking about budget and planning, which is the theme of this year. We'll have done an actual Day of the African Child. We'll have engaged children in the budgeting process. We're not going to be discussing about it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Atulo.
Thank you, Jennifer. I can see Sam Smith is back.
Oh, yeah. Apologies once again for the hitches. Oh my God. I found Miss Jenny giving us insight on what exactly CSOs, their strategies that they can adopt to align with their advocacy with national and county budget timelines. And I want to comment that's a very good approach that we can start, because like with the timelines that we have, yeah. And I think next we're going to open the floor to the audience. You guys, if you have questions for our speakers, the panelists, should you type them? Yeah, the panelists will just answer them. And as you guys ask your questions, we have a general question for the entire panelists discussion. Okay. Okay, I'm being informed that I'll be answering. I'll be part of the panel, stepping in for Michelle, answering the questions. So.
Thank you so much, Samuel. and also thank you for leading this conversation. Just seeing and your understanding of how this works, and just again to remind the audience, if you have any questions, kindly use the Q&A section, and our panelists will be able to answer your question. If it is a general question, you can have it like that. But then if you want a specific panelist to answer your question, you can also just mention it. But then I'd also love to hear from you, Sam Smith, now that you're in the panel. Maybe you can give us an understanding of, briefly give us an understanding of what role does schools and other educational facilities play in ensuring that children are able to have an understanding of these government budgeting processes. Sam Smith. Sorry, I can see that he's dropped off again. Apologies for that. Just to, maybe we can hear from Jennifer. Schools and educational facilities, what role do they have in ensuring that children are able to understand these processes?
So sorry about that. I was so how can you, it's putting budgeting in the curriculum, ensuring that it is in the curriculum, and this is through like KICD, working with KICD, the same way we do economics or business studies. Can we include budgeting processes as part of that? So we are not just learning about things that we don't use, but like we can be taught in classes for economics or business studies in school. Children can be taught on the national budget processes, so that they can, when they don't have a question, or they can be able to question what is happening in their country, because most of the kids don't understand. They know they're paying taxes, but what taxes for what? Okay, it would be nice for KICD to include the budget processes and how expenditure and how the auditor works in the curriculum, so the children will be able to have a better understanding. Thank you so much, Atulio. Atulio, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. And we're currently having a conversation around how it's been in the news lately, and people are talking about how math is now being removed from the curriculum. And someone might ask themselves, is now this something that they might consider to put in the curriculum? But from a personal point of view, I think it is important, and you explained it well. Maybe we can hear also to you, Jennifer, just to help us understand. You talked about child participation, and I believe it comes in different forms. Maybe you can help us. How can we come from tokenism, for example? We are currently talking about how we are going to bring children to talk to members of parliaments, and how the organizations present are also going to hold forums with their MPs and children in their different constituencies. So how can we move from a tokenistic approach to ensure that children are able to meaningfully participate in budgeting?
I think Sam did say it early, and I loved what he said. Don't bring us in a table of where you've already prepared the food. We want to be in the kitchen when the food is being prepared. For me, I think I would use the same words, because most of the time we are coming with budgets that have already been done, and you're asking children, do you accept or don't you accept? So are you going to say yes or no? Okay, so it would be nice before government start coming up with their planning and the budget, they go to the children and say, what are your priorities? What do you want us to include in the budget? So they're using knowledge And then when they have already done, they have cooked, now they bring the food on the table. So the kids said, of course, we said, include us here, include this here, and you have already included. For me, that is very, very important because you're including the children before you have already planned or you have already budgeted. So it is before, not after you have done it. Okay, because after you have done it, it's very, very difficult. When you have done something, being told it is bad, redo it, is very difficult. But if you're told when you're planning, so it becomes much easier. Thank you so much, Atulo.
Thank you, Jennifer, for echoing and also reminding us what Sam Smith told earlier about if don't invest the food when the food is here, one part of the food preparation process. And just to this from the Africa Children's Summit, one of the things that the children talk about is there's nothing for us without us. And so this is the same. And I'd like to also hear from Reverend Tom about what are some of the indicators or what can we use to measure progress in ensuring that children have been meaningfully involved.
I think one of the indicators is better budget allocation and better budget distribution that is needs-based, because the idea behind budgeting is to meet needs and to move people from one point to another along their continuum of vision. So if one of the indicators that we must look out for is a budgeting outcome that is considerate to the needs of the children. And that's why I agree with the people on this call that we must be both in the kitchen cooking and on the table eating, and not just eating what has been prepared for us and being told to either eat it or leave it. I think the second indicator is how many children champions have we been able to produce? Because, bringing children onto the table really pushes us to develop what we call children champions who are children. How many children can speak articulately for children? And one of the privileges we have in this country is we have many brilliant children, even from disadvantaged areas or disadvantaged settlements. Do we have children's champions? I know that in the church we have some, but we need to do a lot more in the church in terms of bringing children to articulate their own cause, because that is a very powerful tool. Do we have children's champions? Can we unleash them? Can there be a lot more what you call exposure? Can we partner with media? That's one of the indicators. Can we partner in media to have the agenda of children mainstreamed into the conversation of society? Like some of these talking points on news. Many talking points on news are usually political. Can we begin to influence some of these talking points? And especially as the Day of the African Child draws near, can we begin to influence some of those talking points? Get onto shows like JKL and others, where conversations are influenced and there's visibility. So we need to create visibility and we need to create mainstream. I think that for me, the last indicator would be how many important people, so to speak, have taken up our cause and it has now become their cause. So creating partners or, raising partners in important circles who can speak for children and speak for the cause of children, even where we are not present. That increases our reach. It basically widens our reach. So can we target people to become child ambassadors? Can we target, for instance, if we say we want to target Madam Chief Justice, the president of, the judiciary, become a child champion? Can we sit down with her? Can we have tea with her? Can we make sure she knows all the talking points, so that in every one of her functions, she will always end up with something like, and let us spare a thought for children. You know, so critical mass must be a very important part of our activism and our advocacy, so that we are not alone and we are not lone voices, and we are not voices that are very far and distant. We are voices that are echoing and resonating. We are voices that are echoing and resonating with society, and not just resonating with society, but capturing important members of society with our message. So let's be very clear about our message. Now, coupled with this, I think one of the things we must address is the fears around children's rights. And those fears, we must look at them in the context of the United States and Europe, where children have been over-empowered. Now, what are the things that Kenyans fear about over-empowerment of children? Can we then reassure society that that is not our aim? We're not aiming at over-empowering children to the point where children are untouchable and they cannot be shaped by parents, and they cannot be disciplined by parents, and they cannot be, guided by parents. So addressing the fears around this conversation, because sometimes every time that you raise, the topic children's rights, what will probably come at you, the brickbat that will most probably come at you is, so now you want to make our children ungovernable. So how do we answer to the fears of Kenyans, especially Kenyans who are still conservative, traditional? We cannot just say we ignore them or steamroll over them, or they wake up and smell the coffee. We need to be able to be sensitive in our advocacy and say we are aware of the dangers of empowering children. These are the dangers of empowering children. We are seized of those dangers, and we are not headed there. We are not driving this ship there. This ship is going to dock in a safe place for everybody. We define what that safe space is. It's in the Constitution, but it needs articulation so that somebody, some crazy person, doesn't stand up and take this to an extreme that will then injure the conversation and make people rise up against this conversation. So those are the safeguards I'd like to throw out there, the cautions I'd like to throw out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rev. Maybe Sam Smith can answer this for us as we wind up. What roles do you as a child think that schools have to play in ensuring that you are able to be part of this whole process and you're able to understand the whole budgeting process? I think he's dropped off again. But then just want to mention that this has been an engaging conversation, and we have some questions. They're not addressed to any particular person. The first one is by Frederick Leshan. He's asking, are there any legal or policy frameworks in place that support child participation in budget processes at national or county levels? And maybe just I can go back to what Mr. Bonyo said, and also our speakers, Jennifer also mentioned about the Children's Act. It's one of the legal frameworks which provides for child participation in Article 28, talking about how children are able to meaningfully participate. And we also have the Constitution, Article 53, which talks about the right of the child, and participation is one of them. And just to ask the same question that Mr. Bonyo asked, if children are able, health, for example, affecting children, if children are able to eat the same way adults are able, if children are able to be treated the same way, to have a right to good healthcare, have a right to life, why is it that when it comes to participation, we want to start having dilly-dallying around that. So it's important to ensure that we are aware of such. The Children's Act, we also have child participation guidelines, which have been given by the ministry, which is mandated by on children issues. And then, so we have something in place, and probably at county levels, I believe also the counties in different ways have child protection policies amongst themselves, which we are still dragging on because not all the counties have this. We have, I believe, not more than half or even a third of the counties have these child protection policies, but then it's something that we need to push more for, but then also work with the provisions that are there already and the frameworks that are already. We also are talking about another question. Someone is asking, are budgeting materials and processes simplified enough for children to understand? And this is something that we've said not yet. This has not been done. And that is why Mtoto News, for example, is coming out and saying, we want to do this. And we already are doing this with other different materials, and budgeting is also something that we're also looking into and are having this as part of our page. And we'll also ask our admin to type the Mtoto News website for you and other people if you want to check out some of the simplified version of different materials. You can be able to check that out there. And have there been successful examples where children input influence budgeting decisions? And like we mentioned, children have been talking for a very long time about issues concerning them. Most recently, we had the Kenya delegation going to South Africa for the Africa Children Summit, and children not only from Kenya, but from other countries were mentioning that this is a conversation that we need to have. We need to budget for health, you need to budget for our schools, and you need to involve us whenever you're talking about this. And so this is, I believe, a conversation that is still ongoing, and also just seeing the input that children have had and how important they are and how, I will say, smart they are, and also have an understanding of and are also affected by these issues. And the other question is, how can budgeting processes be made more inclusive so that children with disabilities or from marginalized communities are also heard? And as Rev Tom mentioned, we need to have and we need to ensure that we have forums for this unique, or should I say specific, group of children. As much as we are including them in when we are talking to other children, it is also important to listen to them carefully and to ensure that their voices are heard and that we are doing something about it. So maybe we also have someone talking about the junior parliament should work hand in hand with government to make sure that children are represented well at national level. Sam Smith, our president, should ensure that our voices should be heard in budget allocation meeting, and I believe that is coming from a child. Unless the panelists want to add something on the questions that have been asked, we can finish our conversation. But then just to remember this, that and here I'll give more guidelines and more updates on how we can continue this conversation even after this Zoom webinar ends. Panelists, if you want to answer that, and probably if not, you can also give us your parting shot on what this conversation has been probably and what you're looking forward to. Panelists, we have Jennifer and Rev Tom, who are the only ones who have remained here.
I just want to end by saying we need to put children at the center of development. And if we are going to do that and to make it sustainable, members of parliament need to budget. Okay, with what is happening in the US and the UK now, it's a wake-up call that we need to think of how to budget for our own, to deal with our own issues. Okay, so for me, it's a rally call. We need this a wake-up call for us as Africans to be able to deal with our own things. Thank you so much, Atulo.
Thank you, Jennifer. Rev Tom, a parting note? Reverend, parting shot? I think we'll come back to the Rev. Maybe
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. So just wanted to say that we must continue to drive this conversation. This is our conversation, but we are driving it on behalf of the children. And one of the things that we must keep doing is we must keep raising child champions. Children themselves, equipping them to speak in forums like this and exposing them in forums and helping them to develop the language, the ideas, and the understanding to engage in conversations like this. I think that would be a really beautiful day when you can have a 3/4 or 100% panel of children articulating children's issues. However, that doesn't mean that we do not belong in this conversation. I mean, adults certainly belong in this conversation, but we must begin to increase the ratio of children in this conversation. I think secondly, my second parting shot is that we must not stop talking, because if we do, then the lights will just go off. So let's not get tired even if we feel ignored. Let's not faint. And let's also, number 3, let us band together. Let us band together. Is it possible for us to have a meeting of children's champions, both civil society and the church? And then once we have our voice banded together, we then invite people like media, and then we invite government for a conversation that can then begin early, so that by the time the budgeting process begins, say in December or October or November or December, the conversation is already on. The idea of starting the conversation in January is not a good idea, because government budgeting processes begin about September, October, where a prioritization and needs, then assessment of the previous year and things like those, the implementation issues. So I think for us, the solution is in engaging more and in uniting so that we can deliver better as a unified front. That is good for me. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rev. Thank you so much, Rev, for that. And I can see Sam Smith is back. Maybe you can hear from him. A parting shot also, probably just to tell us how this conversation has been, and also what message does he have for the civil society organizations and also for children, even as we have this conversation and see how we can enhance their participation in the budgeting processes. Sam Smith.
Right. Thank you so much, Atulo. First things first, I'll apologize again and again. Sorry for the hitches that I'm having. I'm facing a lot of technical issues from where I am, but the conversations have been really breathtaking from the duty bearers we are having, like every speaker that we are having, starting from the child's perspective, is represented by Michelle, having Miss Jenny there, from Total News, Reverend Tom from the giving us the faith-based lens, and also having Mr. Bonyo, who just left. It's been a pleasure co-moderating this conversation. And also thank you so much to the audience for making time to also be here with us and deliberate on this important issue, important topic of children's voices in government budgeting. What I can actually say, my message on behalf of the children of Kenya. Oh, sorry to say, I forgot to introduce myself. I serve as the current president of the Children's Assembly, and my role is basically being representing the best, representing and advocating for the best interest of children, the Kenyan children, all of them. And my message that I have, it's let us truly commit as CSOs and the religious institutions in fixing these systems on how child participation can, all this can be into reality. Let us have that commitment. And I know I've had it once, not twice, that change is a resource game. Also from Miss Jenny, also trying to, coming up with those forums and bringing children. But here's the thing: we can actually make both ends meet. Let's just keep on. We just need to pressure those the parliamentarians, the MPs, and in your cocoa too. And just to mention on child participation, children, I understand and I feel like what has been happening of late, like I know you all have grown increasingly frustrated of this cycle of like discussions that lead nowhere most of the time, because that's what we feel. And
Sam, are you there? Smith, are you there? Okay, so I think Samuel Smith was also just winding it up for us, and for me also just to echo him and thank you to each and every one of us that joined. And as Jennifer mentioned, this is not a dark 2025 issue. This is not a 2025-2026 financial year issue. This is a conversation that we need to start and we need to keep going to ensure that each and every time we have children first understand and children also participating effectively in this government budgeting processes. Also, just to mention, as we conclude, that this conversation, we're also going to have another webinar, and we're going to have the conversation, like Jennifer mentioned, in our website, the simplified versions of different materials, and also this is one of them. And we'll be calling to civil society in the next coming days to just see how we can continue working together in this, and also the religious institutions. But all in all, want to thank each and every one of us for making time to be here for us, to be here and to listen in, and also to contribute through the Q&A. And thank you so much, everyone. And just to mention that our session is over for the day. Asanteni sana.